Welcome back to Dane Harden Martial Arts on YouTube. Today's lesson is called Mizu Keiko. If you look at that, Mizu Keiko literally means water training. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Within the heritage of martial arts training, there are many references to water and water training. Even Bruce Lee, who said, "To be like water, my friend." If you look at the Ishinryu patch, you'll see the Mizugami, or the water goddess, in a position that has various meanings to the Ishinryu stylists. This is a breakdown of the patch and its meaning. When we train in the water itself functions as a mechanism for resistance to movement. In fact, it increases the resistance to movement between 12 and 14%, which has been proven on several different studies. So when you're doing your warm-up, which I'm doing here, wherein I'm swimming my laps, I typically will try to do a quarter-mile swim to a half-mile swim as I'm going through the water, which is supporting my joints and my musculature. This is important because for a gentleman my age, I'm pushing 70, I have some arthritis and I have a hip replacement and I've had some pelvic damage. So all of those things add up over time, and the water's support actually allows you to push yourself harder than you typically would be able to push yourself when you do land-based training. So utilizing the water as an adjunct to your physical training and using aquatherapy is something that within the martial arts world is very beneficial. Here's an interesting fact about water that comes from harvardhealth.edu. If you jog on land for 30 minutes, you burn about 250 calories. In that same 30 minutes, had you jogged in the water, you would burn 350 calories. The next section of my aqua training, once I've done my base warm-up through the swim, is to do calisthenics. I typically will break the calisthenics up to running in place, then I do wall dips, as I'm doing here, where I'm suspended in the corner in the deeper end of our pool, and then I'll follow that up with cruncher-style sit-ups, where I suspend myself from the side of the pool, and then also I do what are called stair-step squats, which I'll show you those in just a little bit. When we're doing this exercise, the dip, I'm trying to isolate the pectoral muscles and the tricep muscles, which are the muscles that we utilize for punching, and this helps to improve your overall power and strength, and it's a core exercise because it does hit the abs when you are suspended. Once I'm done this, we're going to go on and then do the cruncher-style sit-ups. The cruncher-style sit-ups that I do suspended from the side of the pool are interesting in that I've developed the practice of not pinching my nose. Part of the reason for that is that some of the water goes down your nose, and sometimes it can be a little uncomfortable because it can trigger an issue with your airway. You may cough, you may sputter. After a while, though, you begin to learn how to control that so that you don't choke when the water goes down your nose. This would really be a way of learning how to utilize this idea of breath control when we're in an adrenalized state, because an adrenalized state really starts at the base of the pyramid, and our primary drive for self-defense and for survival is the ability to breathe. So being able to do this and not choke and maintain your self-control is an excellent kokyu-ho, or breath exercise that involves mind and body, which is literally the purpose of the breathing exercises. An example of this kind of breathing exercise in a real-life situation occurred on one of my deployments to Iraq. We were flying on a medevac and we were receiving some small arms fire once we had done our load and go on the Black Hawk helicopter, and we were pulling out of an area near Fallujah. And that fire was coming in pretty hot and pretty heavy. That's kind of panicky and is certainly a scary situation to be in. One of the things that I relied upon was this concept of the mind and breath being able to connect and keep that heart rate slow or slower so that I could actually perform my function as a flight surgeon. In this scenario, the patient needed to have a chest tube put in. It was put in while we were flying at 135 knots. I'm seated backwards in the flight surgeon's seat. We're receiving small arms fire and incoming rounds while the patient's life literally is in your hands. This idea of a breath exercise and controlling our response to an adrenalized state is something that is really one of the key purposes in breathing exercises within martial arts. It's not just something that's done for show or something that's done to look cool. It literally is effective in a combat setting. The jogging is my version of high-intensity interval training. You want to change the intensity between a slow jog and a fast jog, and I will do that for several minutes. This is the squat. The quadricep muscles and the glute muscles, because they're the largest muscle groups in the body, really increase your cardiac output and cardiac demands. So this could also be utilized in your HIIT training in order to help to improve your overall interval trains. I normally will do 3 squats out of the water, 3 squats at ankle depth, 3 squats at knee depth, 3 squats at thigh depth, 3 squats basically at waist depth, and then I actually work my way back up the stairs. A lesson learned: be careful when you're walking backwards moving up the stairs so that you don't lose your balance. And an additional tip: if the pool deck is hot and you're parking your bum on the pool, that's not a good idea either. So let's watch the rest of these squats. You'll notice that as I do these, I'm bringing my arms out in front of me on extension. This is a breath exercise where I'm basically breathing in and out and trying to coordinate that breath with the movement of my legs and my arms. Again, what in the martial arts world we refer to as kotai, which is this idea of a unification of our breathing and our movement. So by now you're kind of getting the idea that these breath exercises, or kokyuho, were developed by the samurai as a way of combating that emergent response. A lot of times when we're terrified, our heart rate will skyrocket, our respiratory rate gets out of control, our fine motor coordination is degraded, and also we can get tunnel vision, wherein we lose our ability to see things that are within our environment. All of those things combined make for a very dangerous position for you to be in a street environment if you're fighting for your life. So these breath exercises were developed in order to make that mind-body link and help you to learn how to control your heart rate and your response to an adrenalized state. What I'm doing here is sort of a twist on this by practicing anaerobic exercises wherein I'm swimming underwater. So this idea that while I swim, I'm utilizing my mind to try to calm myself, to try to slow down my heart rate, and try to reduce the air hunger, even though my body is demanding it, but because I'm underwater, I can't get it. This is what in the Army we call Ranger focus, and we're going to talk a little bit about this idea of Navy SEAL breathing. I'm an Army guy. We call it Ranger breathing. But most people just call it the box method. Let's talk about that next. My subscribers on the channel have often sent me thanks and notes of thanks in regards to some of the reading recommendations that I make with the various lessons that we post. This book, The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter, is an excellent read, and if you're a martial artist, I'd strongly recommend it. There's a lot of meat on the bone here that you can utilize when you're teaching and training students. There's an old army saying that goes, "Embrace the suck." It basically just means that when you're in a bad situation and there's nothing you can do about it, you kind of have to march through it. I can remember once at mountain warfare school waking up. It was 10 degrees below zero, extremely cold, but it was so quiet and the air was so crisp and the sun was passing through the frozen branches on the trees and the light is just diffusing everywhere. And it was one of those memorable experiences in my life that I'll never forget. But had I not put myself in that tough situation of going through that mountain warfare training school, I would have never experienced it. What we're doing here is taking a look at the box breath method. This is the very basic breathing method wherein we breathe in for 4 seconds. We hold for 4 seconds. We exhale for 4 seconds, and then we start the cycle over. I like to take that box method, and as I'm doing here, combine it with body movement so that I begin to coordinate my body movement with my box method breathing. And while I'm doing the box method breathing, I'm focusing with my mind on trying to stay calm and on trying to keep my heart rate under control. This would be called Ranger breathing or Navy SEAL breathing, wherein we're learning how to control our response to an emergent condition. The movements that I'm doing with my hands and with my arms are upper body exercises. That would be more of a classical misogi or a body purification training drill that you would study in various Japanese martial arts. We'll finish with this. One of my favorite Zen sayings is that when the water is calm, the moon is perfectly reflected within the water. So calm mind reflects the situation around it. Let's talk about stretching. When we stretch in the water itself helps to support the musculature and the ligaments so that it really helps to reduce the possibilities of injury. I like to follow the Superfoot Wallace method in the water wherein I start at the top and work my way down. When we're doing neck circles, which is what I'm doing here, I'm circumducting through the range of motion within the neck itself. I also twist my head to the left and to the right and tuck my chin down and tuck my chin up. If you think about it, if you're going to get hit, most people want to hit you in the face. So having good subtlety throughout the neck is really, really important. Next, we want to work the shoulders and the arms. This is just an upper torso twist. When we do stretching like this, where we're moving as we stretch, they're called dynamic stretches. And when we do a stretch and hold, that would be called a static stretch, like here. The reason for stretching being done after the warm-up is because the warm-up will get the body to core temperature. Now, I've had an injury in my left hip while I was in the military. So my left hip is an artificial hip. It's made out of titanium and has some screws. So I like to do this pelvic rotation drill, which helps to loosen my hips up so that I can throw my kicks and not really worry too much about generating some sort of a musculoskeletal strain throughout my hips and throughout my pelvis region. You can do wall stretches, which I did do, but I edited them out because it's kind of difficult to see what I'm doing when I'm hanging from the side of the wall. This, however, is easy to understand. This is a straight leg stretch where I've put my foot up on a ledge that's there in my pool, and I'm stretching out the hamstrings. The hamstrings and the groin muscles are very commonly injured muscles when you're doing taekwondo or kicking martial arts like kickboxing. I've had the pleasure of training from some of the best kickboxers in the world, Bill Wallace, Joe Louis. Joe had his debates about stretching. Sometimes he said, don't do it. Sometimes he said, go ahead and do it. I think personally stretching does help to reduce injuries and risks of injuries. Let's take a look at what we call static kicks. These slow kick drills were something that I learned from yet another world champion, Jeff Smith. We would do snap kicks, side kicks, round kicks, and hook kicks, and we would do them slow while we were on the wall. In the swimming pool, you get a little bit more support, but it still works the quadriceps quite a bit. And now I'm doing the side kick position where I've turned sideways and I'm thinking about driving that heel out and locking that position. Of course, while you're doing these, try to do them slow. You can support yourself for balance on the wall itself, drive the heel, and if you can get your foot out of the water, that's even better. I'm in about 3.5 to 4 feet of water, so right now my heel is probably at about a 5-foot level, which for a guy pushing 70, that's not too bad of a side kick. This roundhouse kick, I'm not trying to splash the water, I'm just trying to extend and feel it as it goes through that full range of motion. Now we're talking about balance. These are balance drills. A lot of people, when you put them in the pool and have them try to do balance drills, they have trouble because the pool water itself moves and you'll lose your balance. So you have to understand that your foot, you want to be able to feel it and utilize your toes like as a purchase point where you're literally gripping the floor. Let's look at it from the side so you can better see what it is that I'm doing. I go from snap kick extension to what almost looks like an old-time mule kick or side kick where I'm driving it straight to the rear. Don't put your foot down in between while you're doing that. Take it to full extension and try to maintain your balance, even with the current in the pool.